Good evening. We have decided to do our project on phonological disorders. For the agenda, we will be defining phonological disorders, cause and effects. We will be going over characteristics, development, assessment components, and treatment.
What is a phonological disorder? A phonological disorder can be defined by rule-based errors that are predictable. They can cover an entire class of sounds. Children often do not realize that they are making these errors. Some of the phonological processes include fronting, gliding, backing, omitting sounds, and more. We will cover some of these more specifically later on in the presentation. Phonological disorders are typically the result of simplifying speech sounds. The prevalence in young children is between 8 to 9%, but this decreases as children get older. It is seen in boys more often than girls, but both may present with any of the phonological disorders that were previously mentioned. Cause and effect of phonological disorders. There is no known cause of phonological disorders, which is why it is also referred to as a functional disorder. There are, however, multiple risk factors. Some of these risk factors can include family history of speech and language disorders, hearing loss, and other developmental delays. It can also cause difficulty with communication, which leads to struggles with building and keeping relationships.
Hello, today I'll be discussing phonological disorders and developments in children, focusing on some key characteristics and developmental milestones that help us identify when intervention may be needed. Phonological disorders have some key characteristics, as I mentioned a little while ago. Let's begin with some primary characteristics of phonological disorders that we frequently encounter. The first up is fronting. Fronting is where back sounds are replaced with front sounds. Essentially, velars become alveolars. For example, K becomes T. While common in young children, this should be resolved by age 3 to 4. The next up is cluster reduction, where consonant clusters are simplified by deleting one consonant, typically preserving the second consonant in initial clusters. This process should naturally resolve around age 4. Third is weak syllable deletion, where unstressed syllables in multisyllabic words are omitted. This particularly affects pre-tonic syllables and is more common in longer words. We expect this to be resolved by age 4. Lastly, final consonant deletion is where consonants at the end of words are omitted. This significantly impacts both intelligibility and morphological markers, such as plurals and past tense endings. Resolution should occur between age 3 and 3.5 years. Now, let's explore the typical developmental timeline. From age 0 to 18 months, babies begin experimental babbling, progressing from vowel-like sounds to consonant-vowel combinations. By age 12 months, they produce bilabial sounds such as P, B, and M in first words such as mama and papa. Stop consonants and nasals emerge in word initial position from 18 months to 3 years old. More consonants emerge, including H, W, and F. Children master most stops and nasals. They begin attempting F and S sounds, though accuracy may vary. Final consonant deletion may still occur. From 3 to 5 years of age, children develop F, Y, and velar sounds. Consonant clusters begin emerging. More sounds appear in all word positions. For example, like slide and lips are produced correctly from age 5 and 6 years old. Later developing sounds like R, B, and TH emerge. More complex consonant clusters are mastered. Some refinement still occurs, such as 3 might become free. Understanding these developmental patterns and characteristics is crucial for identifying phonological disorders and implementing timely intervention. When we see these processes persist beyond their typical age of resolution, it signals the need for further evaluation and potential treatment. Thank you for listening.
Hi, my name is Janessa Francois, and I'll be covering the comprehensive assessment for severe phonological disorder. So, some of the key components are the case history, which is Simon, of course, and the child is 7 years old and 3 months, and he has been referred for speech therapy because of significant concerns about his intelligibility and sound distortion, but he has no history of speech therapy before. Another component we're looking into is the oral mechanism examination, and that is a vital way to identify for any structural or functional issues contributing to phonological difficulties. Another one would be for standardized exam, like standardized testing, which consists of language screening and stimulability testing, and this will rule out co-occurring language delays. A brief language screening would be the CLEF-5 screening test, which is administered, and that highlights the importance of ruling out receptive and expressive language difficulties that may occur with phonological disorders. Another thing is a connected speech analysis, which is the standardized testing by capturing the child's phonological processes in natural context. So the therapy goals that we have for Simon and therapy goals and plans for him would be based on the assessments, finding a detailed therapy plan is designed. The long-term goal is for the child to reduce physiological processes and produce age-appropriate sounds in a conversational context with 80% accuracy. For short-term goals, the target is to be specific on his processing, including final consonant deletion and fronting clusters reduction and weak syllable deletion, using moderate cues to achieve incremental progresses.
So the treatment option we're going to use is the maximal oppositions approach. This is an effective treatment strategy for children with moderate to severe phonological disorders. This is a phonological intervention that emphasizes targeting sound pairs with the greatest differences in features. These features are based on place, manner, and voice distinctions. The goal is to encourage the child's phonological system to make broad generalizations. This approach is specifically designed for children aged 2 years to 8 months to 7 years to 11 months who present significant gaps in their phonetic inventory, typically missing 5 to 7 sounds. These children often have difficulty producing a variety of speech sounds, which can significantly impact their intelligibility and overall communication skills. In terms of treatment scheduling, the maximal oppositions approach is typically implemented 2 to 3 times per week, with session durations ranging from 30 to 60 minutes long. This allows for intensive, focused practice, which is essential for addressing these speech sound deficits.
There are two ways to deliver the maximal pairs approach. The first is by selecting pairs that have one phoneme that's in the child's inventory and one phoneme that they make in error. The pairs also must be maximally distinct, which means they differ in place, voice, and manner of production. So, for example, a child with the following phonetic inventory could have a pair of and s, because the is in their inventory and s is not. Another way to do the maximal pairs approach is to use something called an empty set. So this pairs sounds that are both outside of the child's inventory. And the goal of this is to increase overall intelligibility and understanding of the phonological system. These two sounds must also be maximally distinct. So using the previous example, pairs could be s and l because they are distinct and both sounds are not in the child's inventory. There are 3 phases of the maximal oppositions approach. The first is called the imitation phase. This is where the clinician models a target word and has the child directly imitate it. After receiving 70% accuracy over 2 consecutive sessions, the child can move on to the next phase, which is called the spontaneous phase. In this phase, the child makes the target word without the help of a model. After the child receives 90% accuracy over 3 consecutive sessions, the clinician can move on to the next pair of sounds. And the third phase is called generalization. Generalization is the ability to use the target sound correctly in spontaneous speech at least 50% of the time. When the child has generalized all of their sound errors, then treatment may be discontinued.
So here's another really great video I found that gives you a little bit more of an in-depth explanation about what phonological processes are, and specifically what is a cluster reduction. And here is that video.
On this information about phonological disorders, we concluded that further research is needed to explore the most effective intervention strategies for these children to optimize therapy outcomes, and the long-term effectiveness of different phonological intervention approaches needs to be further investigated to provide evidence-based guidelines for clinicians. In conclusion, the presence of persistent phonological processes significantly impacts speech intelligibility, necessitating a structured intervention. Clients require a comprehensive, individualized speech therapy plan to address their phonological disorder. This will not only enhance their speech intelligibility, but also reduce any social or emotional impacts arising from their speech difficulties. Continued assessment and adjustment along the way of therapy approaches based on the client's progress are essential to achieving the best results.